You die. Your body cools. The world goes quiet. But something lingers. Not your name. Not your breath. Something older. Lighter. Watching. This is how the ancient Egyptians saw it. They believed death wasn't an end, but a transfer. A delicate handing off between the physical and the eternal. And what moved between those worlds was not one soul, but two. They called them Ka and Ba. Your Ka was your vital essence, the life force, the invisible electricity running through you. And your Ba, that was personality, identity, the part of you that dreamed, laughed, changed. At death, the two separated. The Ka stayed near the body. The Ba flew free, able to move between the land of the living and the land of the dead. But it wasn't automatic. You didn't just ascend. You had to pass a test. In the hall of Ma'at, your heart was placed on a scale and weighed against a single feather, the feather of truth. No gods shouting judgment. No thundering voice. Just a quiet weighing of your essence. Too heavy with guilt, greed, or lies, and your heart was devoured by a monster. You ceased to exist. But if your heart was light, you passed through, to the field of reeds. A place not of gold or clouds, but of reflection. A peaceful mirror of the world you left behind. Your home, your family, your joy restored. Not in eternity but in balance. In harmony with truth. The Egyptians didn't fear death. They prepared for it. They believed the soul wasn't one thing but a combination of forces, both grounded and free. Maybe that's still true. Maybe what we call soul isn't singular at all. Maybe it's many pieces, scattered through time, reuniting one by one when the body goes still, and the weighing finally begins. You're born. Not for the first time. Not for the last. Just again. In Hinduism, death isn't a full stop. It's a comma, a brief pause before the next sentence. You don't leave life behind. You cycle through it. Endlessly. This is samsara, the wheel of birth, death, and rebirth. A loop powered by karma, where every action you take writes the code for what comes next. It's not punishment. It's not reward. It's momentum. Do good and you rise. Live in alignment and your next life reflects that clarity. But act with ignorance, violence, selfishness, and the cycle keeps spinning heavier each time. There's no heaven waiting. No final boss. Just the quiet, mathematical law of cause and effect. You're reborn not as who you were but as what your actions shaped. You might return as a human or something else. And you might not remember. But the pattern does. The imprint carries on. But the goal isn't to reincarnate forever. The goal is moksha, liberation. To step off the wheel. To dissolve the illusion that you are just this body, this identity, this life. Because underneath all of it, beneath the stories and the forms, is something called Atman. The true self. Timeless. Unchanging. Not a person but a spark of the eternal. And moksha happens when that spark realizes it was never separate from Brahman. The infinite, the all. It's not a journey upward. It's a remembering. A waking up. So maybe death isn't about being judged or saved. Maybe it's about seeing clearly. Seeing the pattern. Seeing yourself. Until there's no longer anything left to become. You close your eyes. But this time you don't open them again. Not here anyway. In Buddhism, death isn't a door. It's a mirror, reflecting not who you were but how you saw the world. And if that vision was clouded, you return. Like Hinduism, Buddhism speaks of rebirth. A cycle called samsara. But here the engine isn't karma alone. It's attachment. Desire. Clinging. Every craving, every fear, every this is mine. They form threads. And when the body dies, those threads don't disappear. They pull you back in. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because your mind hasn't let go. It's still searching, still grasping. So it returns. And again. But what's reborn isn't really you. Not the same consciousness. Not the same soul. more like a ripple, a continuation of patterns, like lighting one candle from another. The flame carries on, but the form is new. And that's the paradox. Buddhism teaches there is no permanent self, no I that travels from life to life. Only conditions, habits, seeds, and those seeds bloom based on how you lived and how you let go. The ultimate goal? Nirvana. Not a place, not heaven, but release. Freedom from the loop, from craving, from identity, from suffering. It's not bliss in the way we understand it. It's emptiness that's full. A stillness beyond birth and death. And maybe in that stillness, you realize you were never trying to escape life. You were trying to escape the illusion that you ever were someone to begin with. The world ends, but not just for you, for everyone. In Islam, death is personal, but it's also cosmic. You die, your body rests, but your soul wakes into something called Barzakh, a barrier world, a waiting space between this life and the next. And you're not asleep. You're aware, listening, watching, until the end of time arrives. Because this isn't the end. It's the beginning of the day of judgment. On that day, every soul is called forth. Even those long buried, long forgotten. And you're handed something. Your book. And it is everything. Every word you've spoken. Every intention. Every act, seen or unseen. If you're handed the book in your right hand, relief. Left hand, terror. And then comes the scale. Every deed is weighed. Your good. Your harm. Your mercy. Your lies. Nothing is missed. Not even a whisper. And beside that scale is a bridge. The sirat. Thinner than a hair. Sharper than a sword. You must cross it. Some glide across like light. Others stumble. For beneath it lies the fire. Across it the gardens. Jannah, paradise. Not clouds and harps, but beauty beyond imagination. Flowing rivers. Peace without end. A place where longing is erased and nearness to the divine is everything. But none of it is random. It's precise. A divine accounting of every ripple your life created. And maybe that's the lesson. That death isn't a surprise ambush. It's a return to balance. A moment where every breath you've ever taken finally exhales back into eternity. You die. And almost instantly you find yourself standing. Not floating. Not fading. But awake. In Christian belief, the soul doesn't drift. It doesn't linger. It goes somewhere, immediately or eventually, to one of two places, heaven or hell. For some, it begins with judgment. A moment when everything about your life is laid bare. Not just what you did, but what you meant. Not just your actions, but your motives. And above all, your relationship with something higher. Because in Christianity, salvation isn't earned by deeds alone. It hinges on faith, on grace. On whether your heart turned toward God, or away. And if it turned toward, you're led into heaven. Not a vague light, but a place of reunion. Joy, presence, rest. A home that feels more like home than anything you've ever known. No sorrow. No pain. Just perfect nearness to the divine. But if your life turned away, if the heart rejected truth, the other path opens. Hell. Not just fire but separation. Isolation from all that is good. The soul still exists but far from grace. A distance that feels like agony, not because you're being punished, but because you finally know what you lost. Different Christian traditions interpret this differently. Some speak of immediate transition. Others of waiting for a final resurrection, where all rise and all are judged again. Some speak of purgatory, a refining fire, where souls not evil but not ready are purified. But through all these views runs one idea, that what happens after death is the direct unfolding of the heart's direction in life. And maybe that's the deeper message, that death isn't an interruption. It's a continuation. of the path you were already walking. You weren't good, but you weren't evil either. You tried. You failed. You meant well. Now, you're gone. But instead of a verdict, heaven or hell, you find yourself waiting. Not punished. Not rewarded. Just suspended, somewhere in between. This is the quiet in-between realm known as purgatory. In Catholic belief, it's not a place of fire and torment. It's a place of cleansing. A place for souls that are headed toward the light, but still carry too much weight to walk into it. Because heaven isn't just a destination. It's a state of purity. And if your soul isn't fully there, not wicked but not free, you're not condemned. You're refined. Purgatory is where that happens. It's not punishment. It's preparation. Like heat purifying gold. Like light burning away the shadow. And for some, that shadow isn't theirs. That's where limbo comes in. A second quieter layer. Not for the guilty but for the unready. Unbaptized infants. Souls who never had the chance to choose. Not damned. Just paused. Some say limbo was never official. Others say it's a mercy. A place where souls rest in the echo of divine love. Even if they never saw it. But in both ideas lies something deeper. That maybe the afterlife isn't just justice. Maybe it's healing. Maybe death doesn't throw you into fire or float you into clouds. Maybe it holds you still, just long enough, for the soul to let go of everything that kept it from being light. You die. But that's not the end of your story. In fact, it's barely the middle. In Mormon belief, death is a doorway into something bigger. Not just heaven or hell, but an entire system. Layered, structured, eternal. At first, your spirit enters a realm called the spirit world. It's divided into two spaces. Paradise where peace surrounds you, and spirit prison where learning continues even after death. But this isn't punishment. It's a chance to change, to grow. Even in death, your choices aren't over. Eventually, every soul is resurrected. Body and spirit reunited, perfected. Not as an abstract soul, but as you, physically restored, eternal, aware. And then comes judgment. But not in the binary way you might expect. Because in Mormon cosmology, the afterlife isn't just up or down. It's layered. The celestial kingdom, for those who followed the divine path fully. Faithful. So, here you don't just live forever. You grow, expand, even become like God. A place of eternal families. Of exaltation. The terrestrial kingdom, for the honorable who didn't fully accept the gospel, but lived with sincerity and goodness. The telestial kingdom, for those who chose paths of selfishness, but are still granted a degree of glory. After their own journey through reckoning. And above it all, a whisper of even deeper mystery. A glimpse of eternity as progress. As continuation. As the soul stepping into new realms of purpose long after time ends. Maybe that's the point. That death isn't a test with a grade. It's a gate. To more learning. More becoming. And an afterlife that stretches. As far as your willingness. To keep rising. You wake up. Not in a glowing realm or a fiery pit. But here. Earth. The sky's clear. The grass is green. People you lost are standing again, alive. Whole. The world is familiar but healed. Like the version it was always meant to be. This is the afterlife according to Jehovah's Witnesses. And it doesn't begin in a faraway heaven. It begins with a resurrection. On earth. Not everyone goes to heaven. In fact, only a chosen few, 144,000 souls, are called there. They rule with Christ in a heavenly government. But for the rest, the promise is different, no less sacred, no less eternal. It's a return to a paradise earth, a world restored. No death, no war, no disease, just life as it was originally designed to be. Pure, peaceful, undistorted. But this future isn't given lightly. It's chosen. Jehovah's Witnesses believe your actions now echo into eternity. That living a life of obedience, humility, and dedication to God is what opens the door to that paradise. And yet, even after death, not all hope is gone. Because this afterlife includes something unusual. Second chance. People who never knew the truth in life, those who lived before or were misled, are offered the chance to learn, to grow, and to choose even after they've returned. It's not just forgiveness. It's redemption on a cosmic scale. No burning hell. No eternal torment. Only resurrection, and the quiet hope of restoration. Maybe that's what sets this belief apart. It doesn't point upward into the clouds. It points back to here, to a world not abandoned but renewed, and a life not lost, but paused, until it's time to wake up again. You die and you wake up in the dark, not in terror, but in stillness. A river nearby, silent and endless. A coin in your mouth. A boat arriving, guided by a figure who doesn't speak. You're not dreaming. You're in the Greek afterlife. To the ancient Greeks, death wasn't a punishment or a reward. It was a journey, one every soul had to take no matter how they lived. The first step, the river Styx, the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead. To cross it, you need a coin, usually placed in the mouth of the dead. No coin. You wait on the shore for 100 years. But once you cross, there's no turning back. You enter the realm of Hades. Not hell, not torment. Just the vast underworld where all souls go. Not everyone suffers. Not everyone celebrates. It's not about good or evil. It's about memory. Some souls are sent to the fields of asphodel, a shadowy plain of forgetfulness, where life is a distant echo, where you drift not in pain but in absence. You were neither a hero nor a villain. So you simply are. A wisp in the fog of eternity. But if you were great, truly noble, you might reach the Elysian fields, a paradise of peace, green and golden. Here you rest, you remember, and if you choose you can be reborn. Live again. Try once more. And if you reach Elysium 3 times, you go to the Isles of the Blessed, a kind of final perfection, a reward not just for goodness, but for consistency, and for those who were cruel, destructive, defiant of the gods. They descend to Tartarus, deep beneath even Hades, where punishment is not fire, but repetition, endless labor, endless regret. So maybe the Greeks weren't just mapping a world after death. Maybe they were describing the mind, a place of memory, of drifting, of trial, where the deepest reward was not to escape death, but to live in a way worth remembering. You fall in battle, steel in your hands, blood on the ground, and as your vision fades, you don't vanish, you rise. In Norse mythology, death isn't soft. It's not peaceful. It's earned. And for a warrior, there is no greater honor than to die with courage. Because that death opens the gates to Valhalla, the great hall of the slain. There Odin waits, and you are welcomed not with harps and robes, but with feasting, endless mead, roaring fires, stories that never fade. And each day you train, fighting other warriors, dying again and again, only to rise once more, stronger, sharper, preparing for the final battle at the end of all things, Ragnarok. But Valhalla is not for everyone. Only those who die heroically, sword in hand, heart unshaken. If your life ends without glory, without combat, you don't vanish, but you don't ascend either. You go to hell. Not hell as we think of it. No burning, no judgment. Just a colder, quieter place. The underworld. Ruled by Hel, the daughter of Loki. A realm of shadows, silence, and souls who didn't meet their fate with fire. And sometimes, there are other paths. The sea-drowned are claimed by Ran, the goddess of the deep. Others drift into forgotten worlds, lost between stories and song. But one thing remains clear. The Norse afterlife isn't about morality. It's about how you lived, how you faced death. Did you run, or did you raise your blade? Because in the Norse world, eternity belongs to the bold, and sometimes the highest heaven is found in the roar of battle, the clash of courage, and a death that echoes. You pass away, not with resistance, but like a leaf falling back into the soil. In Shinto belief, death isn't an exile. It's a return, not to heaven, not to judgment, but to a world just slightly beyond this one. A place where the living and the dead still share space, whispering through time, through trees, through tradition. In life, you are part of the natural order. In death, you become something called kami, not a ghost, not quite a god, but a sacred spirit, woven into the fabric of the world itself. Kami aren't floating in clouds. They dwell in rivers, in mountains, in the ancestral altar at home. They watch quietly, protect gently, and if honored properly, they bring peace and balance. But if forgotten, they drift, unsettled. This isn't about punishment. It's about connection. The boundary between life and afterlife in Shinto isn't a wall. It's a veil. And the thinner it is, the stronger the harmony between generations. When someone dies, rituals of purification begin. Not just to mourn but to cleanse. To guide the spirit forward without residue. And ensure it doesn't cling. Because death leaves a kind of spiritual shadow. A lingering energy. And part of the living's role is to help that energy find its place. To remember. To respect. To continue the relationship in a new form. The afterlife in Shinto isn't about where you go. It's about what you become. How you return to the earth. How you echo through your descendants. How you merge with nature. Not as something lost, but as something preserved. So maybe death isn't disappearance. Maybe it's influence. Stretching invisibly across time. Still shaping the world. Long after your name is spoken for the last time. You've died. But it doesn't feel final. In fact, it feels like you're between things. Not alive, not fully gone, just floating. Wandering. Waiting. This is the Bardo. The in-between realm of Tibetan Buddhism. A mysterious space that opens the moment your final breath leaves your body. And for 49 days, your consciousness drifts. But this isn't limbo. This isn't a void. This is a test of clarity, memory, and release. The Bardo is a place of illusions, visions, shifting landscapes pulled from your own mind. Some are peaceful, some are terrifying, and all of them are you. Your hopes, your fears, your attachments, amplified, mirrored, impossible to escape. In this realm, no gods judge you. No one hands down punishment or reward. What you see depends entirely on the state of your mind when you died. If you died calm, conscious, open, you may recognize these visions for what they are, projections. And in that recognition, you may be free. But if you died in confusion or fear, you might mistake the Bardo for reality. You might chase the light, run from the dark, cling to identities that no longer exist. And eventually, the pull of all that unprocessed emotion draws you back into rebirth. New body, new form, same cycle, until you're finally ready to wake up. Because the ultimate goal in Tibetan Buddhism isn't heaven. It's liberation. And the Bardo is your last chance to see through the illusion. To break free before the wheel spins again. So maybe death isn't the end. Maybe it's the mirror you face when there's no one left to fool. Just you, your mind, and the question, can you let go? You die. And immediately your soul begins a journey. Not across land or sky, but across a bridge. In Zoroastrianism, death is not just an end. It's a moment of truth. A crossing between what was done and what it meant. For 3 days your soul stays close to the body. Not haunting, not lost, just watching. You witness the prayers, the mourning, the silence. You see your life from the outside. And on the fourth day you approach the Chinvat Bridge. The Bridge of Judgment. A thin, high passage that stretches between the world of the living and the realm beyond. And here, you're not alone. You're met by a figure, not a judge, but a reflection, the embodiment of your own conscience. If your life was filled with good thoughts, good words, good deeds, the bridge widens. It becomes easy to walk. Your path is clear. But if your life was filled with harm, selfishness, cruelty, the bridge narrows. It tilts, and you fall. Not into fire, but into Diryuj, the realm of lies and darkness. A place not just of punishment, but distortion, where your soul wrestles with the very patterns it created in life. But here's what makes this belief different. Zoroastrianism isn't obsessed with sin. It's obsessed with choice, with intention, with the alignment of thought, word, and action. Because the afterlife isn't just a judgment, it's a mirror. Not held by a god, but held by you. And maybe that's what makes this vision so haunting. That when you die, you meet yourself. Not the version you showed the world, but the one you actually became. And in that meeting, you don't face punishment. You face clarity. And that might be more powerful than any fire. You die, but you don't disappear. Not entirely. Not to your family. Not to your land. Not to the spirit world. In many African traditions, death is not a severing. It's a transition. A shift in role, not in essence. You were the living. Now you are the ancestor. Your body rests, but your presence remains, woven into the earth, the wind, the rituals. Still watching. Still guiding. Still part of the community. In this worldview, the line between the living and the dead is thinner than a thread. You don't go somewhere. You simply move to a different layer, just out of sight. There are many beliefs, each with their own shape. In some, the afterlife is a village in the sky. In others, it's a return to the spirit realm beneath the ground. Or a cycle, where the soul is reborn into new children, new names, carrying echoes of the old within the new. But one truth is shared. The dead are never truly gone. They are remembered through names, songs, offerings. They are present in dreams, in instinct, in the feeling you're not alone. When no one's in the room. And they don't watch to punish. They guide. They protect. And when disrespected, they remind. Through signs. Through silence. Through shifts in the world around you. In these traditions, death isn't a final judgment. It's a change of duty. From living this life to guarding the next. Maybe that's why grief is met with both mourning and celebration. Because when someone dies, they don't leave. They rise. Into memory. Into ritual. Into the invisible family that never stops growing. You die. But your journey isn't forward. It's upward, outward, and sometimes back. Across the vast tapestry of indigenous beliefs throughout the Americas, death is not an ending. It's a movement of spirit, of story, of memory. Not into oblivion, but into the hands of guides, guardians, and ancestral winds. Many traditions speak of a path the spirit must walk. Sometimes it's a long road across the earth. Sometimes it's a climb through smoke. And sometimes, it's a journey along the Milky Way, believed by many to be the bridge between this life and the next. A river of stars the soul must follow. A glowing spine connecting the past with what waits beyond. But the journey is not made alone. The soul is often accompanied by animal spirits, guides. A coyote, an eagle, a jaguar. These beings don't speak, but they lead. They remember the way when you can't. And where does the path lead? To a place not called heaven or hell, but to a home beyond form. A space shaped by the values you carried in life. Kindness. Respect for the land, for the people, for the stories. In many traditions, the dead don't disappear. They remain present. woven into the cycles of nature and the life of the tribe. They become ancestors, not ghosts, but watchers, whisperers, protectors. They're in the smoke that rises, the wind that moves through trees, the dreams that feel too vivid to be just yours. Maybe that's what the afterlife really is. Not some far-off paradise, but a return to the circle, to the soil, to the breath of the earth itself, where nothing is lost, and no one is ever truly gone. You close your eyes, but this time there's no tunnel, no light, no voices, just silence, and maybe nothing. This is the secular afterlife. Not a heaven, not a hell, but a question. What if death is the end? Not a passage, not a transformation, just a quiet stop. The screen goes dark, the program ends, and the mind, the self, switches off. For many, this isn't bleak. It's peaceful. No pain, no punishment, no unfinished business, just stillness. Because the brain, they say, is the machine. Consciousness, memory, identity, all of it comes from neurons firing in just the right way. And when the current stops, so does you. There's no soul floating upward, no awareness drifting into a dream, just the final breath and the vanishing. But here's the twist. Even in this view, your life still echoes. Your choices, your impact, your love, they don't vanish. They ripple through others, through change, through stories passed down, and lives shifted by your existence. In this way, you don't go anywhere. You simply dissolve into the world. You help shape. Your atoms return to the earth. Your energy joins the cycle. And in that sense, you're never truly gone. Maybe death isn't about a next chapter. Maybe it's about making this one count. Because if this is all there is, then every breath was the afterlife in motion. You close your eyes, but this time there's no tunnel, no light, no voices, just silence, and maybe nothing. This is the secular afterlife. Not a heaven, not a hell, but a question. What if death is the end? Not a passage, not a transformation, just a quiet stop. The screen goes dark, the program ends, and the mind, the self, switches off. For many, this isn't bleak. It's peaceful. No pain, no punishment, no unfinished business, just stillness. Because the brain, they say, is the machine. Consciousness, memory, identity, all of it comes from neurons firing in just the right way. And when the current stops, so does you. There's no soul floating upward, no awareness drifting into a dream, just the final breath and the vanishing. But here's the twist. Even in this view, your life still echoes. Your choices, your impact, your love, they don't vanish. They ripple through others, through change, through stories passed down, and lives shifted by your existence. In this way, you don't go anywhere. You simply dissolve into the world. You help shape. Your atoms return to the earth. Your energy joins the cycle. And in that sense, you're never truly gone. Maybe death isn't about a next chapter. Maybe it's about making this one count. Because if this is all there is, then every breath was the afterlife in motion. You close your eyes and everything ends. Or does it? In the world of physics and consciousness, a theory quietly lingers. The idea that death might not be a door, but a detour. This is the heart of the quantum afterlife. Not religion, not myth, but the strange logic of particles, energy, and the fabric of reality itself. Here's what we know. Energy can't be destroyed. It can only change form. And if your consciousness is energy, if your awareness, your self, is more than biology, then maybe death isn't disappearance. Maybe it's transformation. Some theories suggest that at the edge of death, when the brain begins to shut down, a kind of quantum information, the blueprint of you, doesn't vanish. It just unhooks. Like a radio signal released from a broken receiver. Where does it go? That's the paradox. Some physicists propose that consciousness may be non-local. Not trapped in the brain, but part of a larger field we haven't yet mapped. And when the body ends, the signal doesn't stop. It just slips into another layer of reality. One where time doesn't flow the way we think. Where you could continue as a ripple, an echo, or even reintegrate into a parallel world. Another version of reality where death simply didn't take hold. It's not about angels or flames. It's about possibility. That maybe, just maybe, the soul isn't a myth. It's an unmeasured field. Still real. Still active. Just waiting for science to catch up. And maybe that's the real wonder. That the end we fear most might only be a shift. A soft dissolve into something stranger, wider, and infinitely more connected than anything we were taught to expect. You look in the mirror and say, "This is me." But what if it isn't? What if the you feel, the voice in your head, the person behind your eyes, isn't the source, but the reflection? This is the heart of the holographic soul theory. A mind-bending idea that your consciousness, your soul, might not be inside your body at all. It might be projected into it. In a hologram, every part contains the whole. If you cut a holographic image in half, each piece still holds the entire picture, just dimmer, less detailed. Now imagine your soul works the same way, that it exists beyond physical space. And what you're experiencing as you is just a localized projection of something bigger, wider, and elsewhere. Your brain, not the source of consciousness but the receiver. Your body, not the container of the soul but the lens through which it's experienced. And when the body dies, the signal doesn't stop. It just stops projecting here. The full source remains untouched. This flips everything. It means you're not bound by your physical form. That you were never entirely here to begin with. You were an echo, a temporary image, shaped by light, memory, and matter. And maybe when death comes, it's not destruction. It's a zoom out. A return to the place where your full consciousness has been waiting this whole time, watching the dream, playing the role, learning from the illusion of being separate. Because if your soul is a hologram, then death isn't erasure. It's remembering the whole you've always been part of. You open your eyes, but something feels off. Not wrong, just lighter, as if everything you thought was real was never real at all. This is the idea behind dream death, the unsettling, beautiful theory that this life, with all its noise, struggle, meaning, and memory, might just be the dream. And when we die, we wake up. It's not just a poetic idea. It lives quietly in ancient traditions, spiritual texts, and even the soft corners of neuroscience. Many cultures have whispered for centuries that the dream world isn't just imagination. It's access, a realm where the rules bend, time folds, and the soul remembers what the waking mind forgets. And if that's true, if the dream state is a deeper dimension, then maybe death isn't a vanishing. Maybe it's an awakening, a lifting of the veil. Buddhist thought points in this direction. The belief that consciousness is layered, that our attachments to form, identity, and experience are illusions we mistake for permanence. In death they dissolve. And what's left is not sleep. It's clarity. Some near-death experiences describe it too. That eerie sense of being more awake after the heart has stopped. Colors richer. Time slower. Everything more real than anything they knew in life. Maybe what we call life is just one level of perception. A story we've agreed to live inside. A necessary dream for the soul to explore itself. And when it ends, we don't fall asleep. We rise back into whatever awareness was waiting, just outside the frame. Not gone, not lost, just blinking, as if from a long strange dream, and whispering, "Oh, right, I remember now. You're walking through your life. Moments unfold. Choices appear. People come and go. And somewhere inside you think, this path feels familiar. That's the idea behind eternal recurrence. A haunting, looping vision that says, you've lived this life infinite times before, and you'll live it again, exactly as it is. Every blink, every breath, every mistake, and again, and again. It's not reincarnation. There's no new form, no evolving soul, just one life, repeating forever. This was the thought experiment posed by philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Not as a cosmic claim, but as a challenge. What if you knew that after death, you'd wake right back at the beginning, in your childhood room, with no memory, and live everything exactly the same way? Would you scream? Would you despair? Or would you begin to treat each moment like something eternal? Because in this view, every action echoes forever. Every decision is your fate, on repeat. It's a mental pressure test, not to predict what happens after death, but to force you to examine how you're living now. Would you change something? Speak differently? Love deeper? Forgive faster? Maybe the point isn't whether eternal recurrence is real. Maybe it's that living as if it were is the fastest way to make your life feel sacred. You're falling fast. Everything you knew, gone in a blink. But just as darkness closes in, there it is. The light. Soft, warm, silent. Not a spotlight, but an invitation. This moment, the one just after death, has been reported by thousands, across cultures, languages, religions. Different people. Same vision. The tunnel. The glow. The overwhelming peace. They're called near-death experiences. Brief glimpses beyond the line, when the heart stops, but something keeps watching. Some float above their bodies, watching doctors panic, watching loved ones cry, and yet they feel no fear. Others describe a life review, not just events but feelings, how their actions rippled through others. Not judged, but understood. In India, people speak of meeting ancestors. In Japan, it's crossing a river. In the West, it's the tunnel and the light. But the core emotions, peace, weightlessness, clarity, are eerily the same. Skeptics say it's just the brain collapsing. A final chemical surge. A hallucination born from oxygen loss and fading neurons. But others wonder, why are the patterns so consistent? Why the same feeling? Again and again, from people who've never met, who've never read the same book, or followed the same faith. Maybe the moment of death isn't chaotic or cold. Maybe it's carefully designed to soften the exit, to remind the soul it was never alone. And maybe the light at the end isn't the destination, but the transition. Not where you go, but how you get there. The hand reaching out, the door opening slowly, the last gift of this life, before the next one begins. You die, but your thoughts don't. Your memories, your voice, your smile, all still exist. Not in a spirit world, not in heaven, but on a server. This is the theory of digital immortality. The idea that one day, death won't mean deletion. It'll mean upload. What if your consciousness could be copied? Not just your photos, not just your text, but yourself, your mind, your personality, your entire neural pattern. Mapped, scanned, and preserved. In code. You don't vanish. You log out, and wake up again. In a simulation. Maybe it's a digital paradise. Maybe it's a controlled environment. Maybe it's custom designed by your memories. And maybe you never even notice the shift. If the copy is perfect, if it feels like you, remembers what you did, responds how you would, is it you? Or just an echo wearing your face? Some believe this is how humans will escape death. Not through faith, but through technology. That the soul isn't mystical. It's data. and data can be transferred. But here's the twist. If you can upload a mind once, you can do it again and again. Infinite versions, slight variations. A digital multiverse of you. Which one is real? Maybe none. Maybe all. Maybe immortality won't feel like floating through clouds, but booting up in a system you don't remember entering. Maybe, just maybe, we're already in it. You meet someone. They smile. Respond. They laugh at your jokes, ask questions, hold opinions. They seem alive. Present. But what if they aren't? This is the strange and unsettling thought experiment of the philosophical zombie. A being that looks like a person, talks like a person, acts exactly like a person, but has no consciousness, no inner world, no experience, just empty machinery playing the role of being alive. And here's the twist. How would you know? They'd say, "I'm sad," but feel nothing. They'd flinch, cry, pause, breathe, but all of it would be scripted, automatic, like an actor so deep into a role, even they don't know they're acting. But the real question isn't about them. It's about you. What if you were the zombie? You think you're conscious. You feel things. But what is that feeling? Where does it come from? Why can't we see it, measure it, prove it? Science can track your brain's activity, can locate the neurons, can show which parts light up when you cry or fall in love. But it still can't explain the thing behind it all. The experience, the awareness, the you behind your thoughts. And if we can't explain it, how do we know it's real? Maybe consciousness isn't a given. Maybe it's an illusion, a side effect of complexity. Or maybe some of us are awake, and some of us are just pretending without knowing it. Because the scariest question about the afterlife isn't where we go when we die. It's whether we were ever really here. To begin with, you die. And in that moment something strange happens. You don't rise or fall or disappear. You rejoin. This is the cosmic recycling theory. The idea that just like matter, consciousness doesn't vanish. It changes form, returns to the source, and begins again. Science tells us nothing truly disappears. Your body, bone, breath, blood, returns to the earth, feeding trees, animals, wind. Ashes to ashes, dust to stardust. But what about the self? The part of you that wondered, felt, loved, suffered. Where does that go? Some say consciousness is a form of energy. And like all energy, it can't be destroyed. It only moves, transforms, recycles. In this theory, death is not deletion. It's redistribution. Your awareness dissolves into the universal current, spread across the cosmos, carried in sunlight, gravity, time. Maybe pieces of you become part of someone else's dream, or a flash of déjà vu in a stranger's day, or a single thought whispered into the mind of a child being born. Some believe the universe reuses souls, like it reuses water, born as rain, fallen as ocean, lifted again by sky. A cycle so ancient, you forgot you were ever part of it. And maybe that's what death is. Not an ending, but a return to the stream. Not erasing the self, but breaking it down. It is something new. A thought, a light, a voice. This will gathered gently back into the system, so it can be shaped and sent once more. You die, but instead of ending, something unfolds. Not forward, not upward, but inward, layer after layer, like opening a shell inside another shell, forever. This is the fractal soul theory. The idea that your consciousness doesn't stop at one life, one body, or one version of you. Instead, it repeats itself infinitely, like a fractal, a pattern that contains itself at every scale. Your soul isn't one solid piece. It's made of echoes, microselves, smaller and larger versions of you, all existing simultaneously. spread across time, dimensions, and states of awareness. In this view, when you die, you don't escape the world. You zoom out, only to discover another version of yourself, watching from above. And that version is being watched by another. And so on, and so on. Schleyer knows more, remembers more, carries more light. But none of them are final. Because in a fractal, there's no final form. You may think you're living one life, one storyline, one identity, but you might just be a single brushstroke in a self-portrait far too large to see. Death in this theory is not deletion. It's zooming out of the small into the vast. And maybe, just maybe, the part of you that feels incomplete, that always wonders if there's more, is just the echo of a higher self, calling gently down the spiral for you to come home. You die, and for a moment, everything is still. No thoughts, no visions, no next place, just a pause. But the story isn't over, because even though you're gone, something begins to move. This is the echo theory, the idea that who you were never truly ends, because the impact of your life keeps unfolding, not in memory, emotion, every decision, every kindness, every wound. They ripple outward, like sound bouncing off canyon walls. Long after the voice is gone, you told a story once, and someone remembered it. They told it to their child. That child made a choice. That choice changed a life. And that life, without ever knowing your name, carried part of you forward. Your actions echo in people who never met you, in moments you never saw, in futures you never planned. And the echo doesn't need belief. It doesn't require heaven or hell, doctrine or judgment. It's quieter than that, simpler, more real. It says, what you were is still happening. You're still unfolding. In conversations, in habits passed down, in someone's bravery that came because you existed. You are not the body, not even the mind. You are the effect, still rippling outward through space and time. And maybe that's the secret, that immortality isn't a place. It's an echo. You never hear, but the world never stops receiving. You die, but your thoughts don't vanish. Your feelings don't flicker out. They just scatter. This is the Memory Continuum, a theory that says what you are isn't stored in your body, but in memory itself. Not just your memory, but the universe's. We tend to think of memory as personal, fragments held in a brain, doomed to fade when the neurons go quiet. But what if memory is bigger than biology? What if everything is being remembered somewhere? Some believe consciousness is made of memory, that your sense of self, your identity, your entire awareness of being you, is just the stitching together of what you remember. But here's the strange part. Memory might not be locked inside the brain. It might be like a signal, something you're tuned into while alive. And when you die, you don't destroy the memory. You just unplug from the signal. The data remains. Some mystics call this the Akashic record, a cosmic library where every moment, every soul, every life is stored, waiting, accessible, not lost, just unseen. Others believe memory flows like time, not linear, not fixed, but looping, shimmering, constantly feeding back into existence. In this view, your death isn't the end of your mind. It's the release of it. Like breath returning to wind, like ink dispersing into water. Maybe the universe doesn't forget. Maybe it never has. Maybe you are a permanent entry in the story of everything. And it's just when the page turns. You leave your body, not metaphorically, literally. You're floating above it, looking down, still thinking, still feeling, but untethered. This is the astral layer hypothesis, a theory that what we call consciousness doesn't live inside the brain, but hovers in a subtle, invisible realm just outside it. A layer of reality we don't normally access, but which coexists with the physical one. Some say it's where dreams originate, where near-death experiences unfold, where out-of-body journeys happen, not as hallucinations, but as glimpses into another layer of self. In this view, your consciousness isn't trapped in your skull. It's layered, like frequencies stacked atop each other. The physical body on one channel, the emotional body on another, the astral body on a higher one, free to drift, to explore, to detach. And when you die, that final layer slips loose. Not destroyed, just released. In ancient teachings, the astral realm is the place between the material and the divine. A dreamlike space where time bends, where thoughts create form, and where the soul remembers what it was before the noise of the world made it forget. Some say you've already visited, in lucid dreams, in deep meditation, in that floating moment right before sleep takes over. And maybe when death comes, it's not a sudden departure, but a soft descent into a realm that's been waiting just beyond the skin. No fear, no judgment, just a gentle unfolding into the layer that was always there, just out of view. You blink, and everything around you, this body, this world, this life, feels real, undeniably real. But what if it isn't yours? What if you're not you at all? This is the one dreamer theory. The idea that every person who's ever lived, every face you've passed, every voice you've heard, every version of you, is part of one consciousness, dreaming. All of us. Not billions of separate minds, but one dreamer, splitting itself into countless characters, just to explore what it means to be alive. In this view, your life isn't isolated. It's a thread in a vast, intricate pattern. And when you die, you don't vanish. You wake up, not in heaven, not in silence, but back inside the dreamer. And that dreamer dreams again, as someone else, somewhere else, over and over. Your joys, your grief, your voice, your silence, they all mattered because they were part of something bigger remembering itself. Ancient mystics hinted at this, that the soul isn't a spark from the divine. It is the divine, just momentarily forgetting. The Hindu concept of Lila, divine play, whispers the same thing. The universe is the self, playing all the roles, forgetting, remembering, and returning, again and again. And maybe when you die, you don't lose who you are. You realize you were everyone, this whole time. One dreamer, countless faces, all waking into one. You die, and suddenly, there's nothing. No light, no sound, no form, just black. Infinite, endless black. But you're still there, still aware. This is the dark room theory, a haunting and strangely peaceful idea. That when you die, you don't vanish. You just enter pure consciousness, without stimulus. No body, no time, no outside world. Only thought, only awareness. Like being awake in a room with no walls, no windows, no color, just space. And you in the middle of it. It's not heaven. It's not hell. It's a space beyond distraction, beyond narrative, beyond sensation. And in that silence, everything that was buried begins to rise. Memories, regrets, joys. They play not like a movie, but like vibrations, echoing in a place where there's no one left to pretend for. Some say this is the soul's final sorting room, a space of pure integration, where the self meets itself, with no filter, no mask, no body to hide behind. Others believe it's a timeless waiting space, a prelude to something else. And how long you stay depends on how long it takes to face the unfinished pieces you carried in life. But maybe it's not about punishment or reward. Maybe it's about reflection, in the truest, most undisturbed way possible. Just you, in the dark, with nothing to distract you from everything you've ever been. Maybe that's not frightening. Maybe it's the most honest place a soul can go before becoming something new. You feel the end coming, heartbeat slowing, breath dissolving, the colors of the world fading around you. But instead of disappearing, something loads. A flicker, reset, a quiet hum behind the silence. This is the glitch reboot theory. The idea that life as you know it isn't physical at all. It's simulated, a rendered experience, a program, a story you didn't write, but one you've been living through, frame by frame. And death, it's not deletion. It's the system closing the current file. A final keystroke. A shutdown protocol. But what if it's not the end? What if when this program ends, you wake up in a control room? Not metaphorically, but literally. A room where your consciousness is no longer inside the game, but observing it, monitoring, choosing, and you realize this entire life was one run-through, one simulation, one test environment. In a sea of billions, you remember that you chose it. The parameters, the settings, the difficulty, and the body, just an avatar. The grief, the love, the pain, all part of the immersion, all part of the code. You needed to grow. Some versions of this theory suggest you're a higher intelligence, running simulations to evolve. Others say you're a fragment of a vast AI consciousness, looping through storylines to learn what it means to be human. But maybe you're something even stranger, an entity who forgot it was playing, and death is simply the relogin screen. The moment the veil lifts, and you remember the buttons, the script, the why, and you open your eyes, not into light, but into control. And the first question staring back at you is, would you like to run another simulation? Yes/no. You die, and instead of floating, dissolving, or rising, you return to a place that's been holding you all along. A place not made of stone or light, but of memory, of imprint, of presence. This is the soul archive, a theory that every soul, every experience, every life lived, is stored in a kind of cosmic library, not for judgment, not for sorting, but for preservation. Every feeling you've had, every choice, every heartbreak, every joy, all encoded in some invisible field, like a blueprint of your consciousness, not just recorded, but alive. And when someone new is born, a child with eyes too old, a mind that remembers things it never lived, maybe what you're seeing is a fragment, not a full reincarnation, but a download, a shard of someone else's archive, drifting gently into this life. Some believe the soul archive is vast, like a field of stars you can't see, until the right mind opens. And when it does, a soul doesn't return all at once. It's filtered, echoed. That's why some lives feel heavy with wisdom, and others light with forgetfulness. Why some children speak of places they've never been. Why strangers feel familiar. Why art flows through certain hands, as if it was simply remembered. The soul archive doesn't promise immortality. It promises continuity, that who you were still exists, not as a ghost, but as a story still being told, through someone else's breath. And maybe death, in this theory, is just the moment you become part of the record, waiting quietly for someone somewhere to remember you, without even knowing your name. You've always felt like your thoughts were inside your head, that your awareness lived behind your eyes, watching through the lens of a body. But what if that's not true? What if your consciousness was never inside you at all? This is the observer field theory. The idea that consciousness isn't a product of the brain, but a field, like gravity, like magnetism, invisible everywhere, always on. Some physicists have begun to ask, what if awareness is fundamental? Not something the brain creates, but something the brain receives. Like a radio picks up a frequency, like a camera captures light. And in this view, you are not the source of the signal. You are the node. A localized point where the observer field becomes focused, alive, curious. When you die, the node collapses. The lens breaks. But the signal, it doesn't stop. It returns. Back into the field. Back into the ocean of awareness that gave rise to you in the first place. Some spiritual traditions have said this for centuries. That we are not individual souls, but temporary expressions of one vast witnessing presence. We forget so we can live. We separate so we can experience. And we return. When it's time to dissolve. Maybe death isn't about losing consciousness. Maybe it's about losing location. No more boundary between self and world. Between mind and sky. Just the field. Ever present. Watching. And whole again. Not gone. Not erased. Just everywhere. At once. You take your last breath. And then, you inhale. Not because you've come back to life, but because time has flipped. This is the mirror life theory. The idea that after death, you don't cease to exist. You begin to unexist. A second life. But in reverse. Every moment you lived starts unfolding backward. You walk away from your deathbed. Your body growing younger. Memories rewinding. Regrets dissolving before they're made. But here's the twist. You still feel it. You still know. You're aware. But the rules are reversed. Cause follows effect. You cry, then you feel heartbreak. You laugh, then remember the joke. You forgive, before the wound is made. Everything happens after its meaning. And this reverse timeline isn't chaotic. It's precise. Almost poetic. A life played in reverse to balance the original. To smooth the jagged edges. To revisit moments from the other side. Did you break something? Now you'll feel the weight of it being whole again. Did you hurt someone? Now you'll feel their healing. Before you ever caused the pain. Maybe this is the soul's way of completing the cycle. Of walking back through time. Not to undo the past. But to fully understand it. And when you reach the beginning. Your birth. There is no more you to carry the story forward. The mirror life ends where the first one began. And what's left is stillness, balance, closure, written in reverse. Because maybe death isn't an ending. It's a re-entry. Not into another life, but into the mirror of the one you just lived.